Everyone, this is Rad Soren, Black Belt Mindset Coach. We're very fortunate to have Stuart Wade, who is a martial artist and mindset coach and hypnotherapist. So, Stuart, welcome. And
Hi, Raj.
nice
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It'd be great to get to know a bit about your background, how you got into what you're doing now, and what type of things you do to help people out there in the world.
Absolutely.
So what led you to this position of the work you're doing at the moment?
Sure. So I always now, not at the time, but now I relate it to my martial arts journey, because I started training and competing when I was 6. Didn't enjoy the competition side, but I loved martial arts and the personal development that came with that. As I got older, I got more into the competition side of things when I was 12, 13 years old, and started having a lot more success, and my confidence in my abilities grew at that point. And around the time I was 15 or 16, I'd been competing internationally, representing Great Britain for about 3 years at that point, and having a fair bit of success, but I wanted to achieve more. And I picked up a visualization practice from somewhere, and I don't recall where. It was probably a Tony Robbins book or something like that. And I started implementing it into my pre-competition routine, and it really just put me in the zone mentally, physically, and emotionally to go out and perform to the very best of my ability. And I didn't always get the win, but I always felt that I was able to give my best performance, and whatever happened on the day happened. And so that was my first window into how powerful our minds can be when we get them in alignment and engaged with a particular goal. I did a degree in applied sport and exercise science at university, and a large portion of that degree, well, a third of it technically, was sports psychology. And so again, that gave me a lot of theoretical insights into psychology for sport specifically. And I found it interesting. But at that point, I had my heart set on becoming a personal trainer. And so that was my path straight after graduation. But very quickly, I started noticing what I would now classify as limiting beliefs from my personal training clients. And coincidentally, around the same time, I started going through some struggles with my confidence myself. And so I ended up losing a number of tournaments on the bounce, and it totally messed with my head because it was fatigue that I was experiencing. I wasn't losing because of a lack of skill per se. I was just exhausted in there, and it totally messed with my head. And I ended up developing into a downward spiral of, oh my God, it's going to happen again, come the next tournament. And of course, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I saw a clinical hypnotherapist for help with this. And I couldn't tell you what he did, but he flicked a switch in my subconscious mind. I didn't change my training. I didn't change my diet. Probably should have done, but I didn't. The work that we did on my subconscious and my mindset totally shifted the way I was thinking, feeling, and able to perform then. And that old issue was gone. And so that can utilize that to perform to the very best of our ability. And so shortly after that, I was lucky enough to do some work with Paul McKenna, who I'm sure a number of your viewers and listeners will have heard of if they're in the UK, quite a famous hypnotist. And working with him for a day, that was the light bulb moment for me, where I asked him, Paul, I want to get into this industry. I want to study and get qualified so I can understand how this stuff works, because it's incredible. And so he referred me to his mentor, Dr. Richard Bandler, co-founder of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And so I started my journey there. And straight after doing that, I became a clinical hypnotherapist on another qualification after a year or so study and countless practice hours and case study reports and examination questions and all of this kind of thing. And I've been doing it ever since. And it's now 11 years since I got qualified there, and I can't imagine not doing it, in all honesty. I love it.
Amazing. So that's a journey through your life in martial arts. In the early days, you were going through a winning streak. Then sometimes negativity pops in, mindset changes, and the subconscious mind can take over. And what can we do to help people get past that subconscious mind and the things like imposter syndrome, ability to believe in yourself? That's a big thing at the moment, isn't it?
It is a big thing at the moment. And for me, the first thing is having the awareness that not only is that a thing, but then also how is it impacting us ourselves? If we can have that awareness, if we're catching ourselves in a limiting belief, let's say, or if someone else points out to us we're actually talking about a self-imposed limitation there's no external reason why we can't do a particular thing, but we're telling the other person and ourselves that we can't do something, that might be an indicator. When we get that awareness that, oh, okay, there's something subconsciously that I need to address here. And so that's the first step. And then we can start to unpack that and undergo some metacognition to see how true that limiting belief is. Is that actually factual, or is it a story that my subconscious is playing on repeat? Because we have an innate negativity bias. Our subconscious wants us to survive, and it wants us to reproduce. It doesn't want us to achieve per se. It doesn't want us to be happy per se. It just wants survival and replication. And so it will do anything to sustain those two things. And if there's something that we're trying to achieve that it perceives as a threat, it might create some story as to why we can't do that. And that becomes a limitation, a self-limiting belief. And so awareness, that's the first step. And then we can start to unpack it. And if we need to, we can seek out the help of a professional in mindset or clinical hypnosis.
Yeah, and it's interesting because these can be habits of a lifetime that we've been allowed to have these negative thoughts, that these limiting beliefs. Because as a child, we seem to be able to believe in everything, don't we? We can fly, we can be become an astronaut, all these things, and yet as we're growing up, that those dreams are stolen from us. Are you seeing that in people, and as time goes on, and why is it do you think this happens?
Yeah, absolutely. I see that quite frequently, in all honesty. And when we are born to around the age of 9, maybe 10, depending on who you ask, we're operating predominantly subconsciously. And so we are a sponge. In essence, we're absorbing everything about the world around us, our place in it, and what things mean. And our subconscious mind, our mind at that point, is putting 2 and 2 together, sometimes making 5, depending on what we experience and certain lessons or events that we might encounter with caregivers or peers, people of influence, teachers, things like that, who may be actually running some negative programming themselves and inadvertently influencing us with that at that age. And so we don't question it. Our subconscious doesn't question these things. It takes all these instructions as an affirmative. That's the way it is. And when we're at that age, our critical faculties haven't developed to the point where we would question it. If we were an adult and somebody would inadvertently impart this on us, we could critique it. Our conscious, logical mind is thinking, well, no, actually, you're wrong there. That's incorrect. And it would disregard that information. But at that age, when you're a child, you have no filter for that. So that information just gets absorbed, and it can become a part of our programming. Then as we grow up and we start to embody that, good, bad, indifferent, as we get older. And so, yeah, it's critical really during those formative years that we have those positive influences and positive experiences. And people around us, our caregivers, peers. Again, you can't really control the peers as such at that age, but parents, teachers that are mindful of the things that they're saying to the child who's that age, because they are a sponge. They're absorbing everything, and it can literally shape the person that they're going to become and the things they're going to do in their life.
Yes, very much agree with what you're saying. And what tends to happen is that as a child is growing up, depending on the environment, they can be told, stop doing that, stop being naughty, sit down, stop visiting, and why you want to do that career, why do you want to do that career, or you will never become successful in this. And all that negative, dark energy is not helping them, is it?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And trying to break away from that force of gravity, and it can change someone's direction in life. So the people that you're working with, I believe, is athletes and professionals. And so what is it you do with athletes versus what you do with a business owner, do you say?
So they can be very similar, in all honesty. The athletes and the business owners want to progress. They want to achieve something. And sometimes, I would argue more often than not, but I do have some clients that book the trend with this. There's some things going on with them psychologically, emotionally, sometimes physically, that may be holding them back and putting the brakes on that achievement. They might have their right foot on the throttle to go forward and achieve this thing, but they might have their left foot on the brake at the same time. And so their progress is stalling. And so we need to address that. We need to reprocess, resolve, whatever that may be. It may be a trauma, it may be limiting beliefs, lack of confidence, anxiety, stress, whatever it is. We need to resolve that subconsciously to give them the space then and the permission to rewire their brain in a more positive way so that they can move forward and achieve. Now, I do have, as I alluded to there, a couple of clients who they don't have any of that stuff holding them back. They're just looking for the 0.1% increase in improvement that's going to just help them get the edge on their opponents, specifically the athletes I'm talking about here, but also the business owner. If they haven't got any of this stuff that's holding them back or has been holding them back, they want that little edge. And so getting that subconscious in alignment with the conscious mind, removing any barriers to that and helping them to power forwards, we can really see some great results. It really depends on the individual and their experiences.
Yeah, I can imagine, because sports psychology is probably only maybe 50 years old or so. And even the best athletes get coaches now, psychology coaches, whether you're a tennis player, footballers, and all forms of different athletes, trying to get this marginal gains because they're already successful. But at the same time, you're only as good as your last win, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
What do you say about people say you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes?
I'm inclined to agree with it. The verb failure, though, is something that I'm a little bit less hot about, because if you're able to learn something from it, I would argue it's not a failure. John Kavanagh, who is Conor McGregor's coach, has a book, and I have it somewhere on my bookshelf, called We Win or We Learn. And that's exactly the thing. If we don't get the result we desire, okay, what can we learn from this? It's not a failure, it's data. And so something happened during that process that led us away from the desired result. So what can we figure out from that to get a better result next time? And so I would agree, certainly, because if you win, generally you must have been doing something right. So there's less inclination to investigate and unpack that, unless you're being super, super diligent and you want to get every ounce of top performance out. Most people are going to be a little bit more complacent's a strong word, but I'm going to use it because another term escapes me at this point, but a bit more complacent to unpack it because you got the right result that you wanted. But the failures, okay, there's more data to work from here. So I agree with the sentiment 100%. Yeah, just the failure term that I don't agree with so much.
Yeah, that's it. I've said that to sort of get that out there, because that's a term that is used. And
It is.
I think the challenge you have is that if you're a top athlete, you're competing, that's where the big money is on the wins, and you're deemed
right.
obviously and rewarded based on that. It's a sense of you're doing an action, you're getting a result, you're understanding the data and the information that comes back to you. And sometimes some teams, when they go and you can go and celebrate a win, and you can get drunk, and you can do other things. There's other teams that gather together and say, "Great, we've won. How did we win?" Not only do we celebrate, we analyze how we won.
That's right.
So they repeat that habit.
Yeah.
I think people sometimes have a fear of failure. If you want to use that word, and that holds them back.
Yeah.
So how do we help those people not getting out of their comfort zones, trying something new?
Yeah, absolutely. And my first mentor in the work that I do, he had a phrase that I remember from the qualification that I did with him, and it was energy flows where attention goes. And so if you're focusing your attention on the failure, in the fear of failure in this instance, you're focusing on things not going the way you want them to, and you're dedicating your energy to that, and you're more likely, in my own example, when I was struggling with my confidence in my fitness, all I was thinking was that it's going to happen again. I was just focusing on being exhausted out there and losing. And sure enough, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy until I got the help to change that. And so we have to divert our focus away from the thing that we don't want, the failure in this instance, towards the possibility of winning. And sometimes it does take working with a professional to help us do that. But again, we can unpack it a little bit. Why am I focusing on the failure? What is it about that? What emotions am I feeling? What's the attachment? What's the draw there to that? And we can unpack that. And if we write these things down, handwritten in a journal, for example, rather than typing, we go through that metacognition process that I alluded to earlier, and we can actually judge a bit more objectively the things that are coming from our mind. And that can help that process to start to take our attention away, move more towards possibilities than being closed-minded with the blinkers on, focusing on the failure. Yeah.
Yes, it's possibility thinking, looking for the opportunities. So, some individuals will have a crisis in their life and they'll build on that and bounce back.
Yeah.
And others, another crisis, which will break them and will stop them from trying harder.
Yeah.
I suppose it's the mindset piece there. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right.
Now, in terms of how people are working hard these days, long hours, getting stressed out, demands on their time, cost of living going up, changing the economy, changing what's happening around the world and what's happening. So how do we stay focused and help to reduce stress? Because that's an area I'm interested in, as you know, I've run workshops and written books on it. So from your perspective, what's your thoughts on that area?
One of the first things that comes to mind is switch off the news, in all honesty. Because if it bleeds, it leads. News is on first because it spikes our cortisol levels, it hooks us in, it taps into that fight or flight sympathetic nervous system response and the innate negativity bias that we have. It taps into that primal thing that we have in our biology to look for the threats. And so we're seeing all this threat on the news, and it makes you want to run. It makes you want to hide. Stay safe. Don't don't venture out, don't do this, don't try, because it's dangerous out there. And so that's the first thing that I would say in terms of helping with the stress. But also being more present is helpful, because we spend so much of our time thinking about stuff that may or may not happen in the future, or stuff that did happen in the past that might have resulted in where we are right now, and we don't like it, etc. But we're not actually being present in the moment enough, because chances are things aren't that bad right this very second where we are. So being mindful, and you can do some kind of mindfulness exercise if you want to, slow the breath, look at the objects in the room around you, notice the details, all of these kind of things to get present. But one thing that I do with my clients is focus on the breathing to calm the nervous system down. And it works really well for anxiety, but also stress. And I advise them to do a double inhale and a slow exhale, which is called a physiological sigh. And it shuttles more oxygen into the lungs, into the alveolar sacs, and out into the bloodstream. So we're getting more oxygen into our system, because when we're stressed, we hyperventilate, we don't expand our diaphragm as much, we don't fill our lungs as much. And so that raises cortisol levels in the blood, the stress hormone. And so if we can force more oxygen in there and then do a slow, controlled exhale, that tells our parasympathetic nervous system that it's safe. It's okay. I don't need to be vigilant right now. I don't need to be ready to fight or run or whatever it is. And so those couple of things are what I say to people to help with stress management. Just be mindful, be more present in the moment, and then that breathing technique specifically. And it really seems to help people to just center themselves and disassociate from the stress, even for a little bit. You know, life happens, but it's how quickly we respond and adapt to that.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Because the amount of negativity, news, social media, newspapers, everything else comes at us 10 times more than it used to, because it's so available. So shutting that tap off of negativity, very much agree with. Realigning how we deal with our stresses. Breathing, vitally important. Breathing in the right way, because we forget how to breathe, don't we? When we're stressed, we're tense, we go into flight mode, don't we? We're in flight mode, around parasympathetic you talked about, and it's not often we're in a place of calm. We're in a competitive environment, whether it's in a social setting or in a business setting. So we're constantly looking for fear and challenges. So something you have to work on a regular basis, isn't it?
It is. It's the same as exercising your body. It's a practice that you need to have to keep on top of things. But it doesn't have to take all that long, and it doesn't have to be super complicated either. It can just become a daily part of our routine.
Brilliant. But how do people get hold of you, Stuart?
So my social media handles tend to be Stuart Wade on Facebook and LinkedIn, and then the Mind Coach at the Mind Coach UK on Instagram. Those are where I tend to engage with people. But also I have a website, www.themindcoach.co.uk, and people can reach out to me via email at stuart@themindcoach.co.uk.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And what type of clients are you looking for in particular to help and support?
So at the moment, I'm really focusing on working with more entrepreneurs. I'm looking for any entrepreneurs at the moment that are working every hour that God sends, and they're stressed, and maybe they've got anxiety as well about the business and things going forward, but they want to achieve, but they don't know how to calm the body down and implement the things they need to implement in order to do that. So those are the people that I'm focusing on working with at the moment.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a really good and great pleasure to have you today on our show, Stuart. And I wish you all the very best for making a difference in entrepreneurs or individuals' lives and that mind shift for them, or the hypnotherapy, whatever it takes. And for those watching this program, do like and subscribe and share, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj.